All right, guys, so now you've kind of scaffolded that ability of your children to go and say, hey, I don't like it when you, because it makes me feel. And so they're doing great with that. What's the next step? Okay, so the next step is then I look at, for the case of this scenario, we were using the purple one as the one that had upset feelings, and our pink friend as the friend who was the aggressor in the situation, whether it was intentional or not intentional, because sometimes, especially in early childhood settings, when their gross motor is not fully developed, when their sense of others isn't fully developed, sometimes they hurt others' feelings or bodies without being intentional with it. So that's absolutely okay, and I definitely address the situation the same, no matter whether it was intentional or unintentional. So that being said, we've got our victim for the purpose of this scenario and our aggressor for the purpose of this scenario. And I don't label it that way with the real children, but just for us as educators, okay? So we've come with purple. We've said, hey, I don't like it when you hit me. It makes me feel sad in my body and my feelings. Great, she's able to do that now. Then what we do is we look at pink and we say, pink, look at purple's face. She's real upset. And 99% of the time, they're going to ham that up. And so you're going to see purple, who was just fine a minute ago, start to go and even like hold her boo-boo and things like that she wasn't doing, which is fine. Because what we need them to do is really emphasize that. Just like when we're teaching children to speak, we emphasize the phonemes a little more. We need them to do that emotionally as well. So that's totally fine that they're hamming it up, okay? So then our little pink friend is starting to realize how she's feeling from those nonverbal and verbal cues. We're telling her verbally, this is how purple is feeling, and now purple is showing it with her body language as well, which is perfect. That's exactly what we want to happen. So then we look at purple and we go, how are we going to fix this? I never make my kids apologize, okay? Because that gives them the false sense that they've fixed something, even when it's not an authentic apology. Okay, so here's what I do instead is I ask them how they're going to fix it. Now, sometimes they don't know, because just like when we were talking about having purple go and say, hey, you hurt my feelings, and she kind of looked at you like you lost your mind, that's what our aggressors are going to do initially too when we ask them to fix things, because typically they've just been told to say you're sorry, and that doesn't always fix it. That inauthentic apology doesn't make the victim feel better, and it doesn't give our aggressor the chance to build that empathy of others, okay, and really truly make amends for what happened, okay? So by asking them to fix it, they have to kind of think and take perspective of the victim, and they have to kind of go through a bank of ideas to make the victim feel better. Now, typically when they come to you in early childhood, they don't have that big bank to draw from, so it's our job to kind of give it to them. So if they do kind of go, I don't know how I'm going to make her feel better, there's a couple of options you can do depending on the development of each child, not just their age, but where are they in their social emotional development, okay? So one of the things I do is I can list off a few things. I will say to the child, well, Pinky, you could say you're sorry. That might help. Or you could share. You could tell her you're not going to touch her anymore. There's lots of things we can do. And so I will give her a list, depending on the situation, depending on the children themselves and their development, a list of things that are real easy for them to do, okay? Sometimes I'll say, hey, you can give a hug if I know that purple is a touchy-feely kind of kid, and a hug would make them, or a rub would make them feel better, okay? So I really kind of balance the needs of both the children where they are developmentally, okay? Now, after pink has done whatever they're going to do, so I'm sorry, or a quick rub, or a hug, then I look at the victim again, okay? I look at purple again and I say, did that make you feel better? Most of the time, purple is going to say, yeah, I feel great now, okay? Because it's that act of truly trying to make amends for that behavior that made purple feel better, not necessarily the hug or the rub or the sharing of a toy, okay? Now, if she says no, you've got a couple of options. It doesn't happen often, but sometimes you will have a friend that says, no, I still don't feel good. So sometimes I will say, well, what would make you feel better? If I feel like their development is enough that they can answer that question, I will ask them that question. And usually they'll come up with something authentic that will make them feel better. Other times I'll say, do you need a hug from me? Or would you like to come sit by me? Would that make you feel better? You can be my friend right now and we can be partners. You can come sit and help me. So it really depends on, again, who purple is developmentally. Where is she? What's her personality like? How can I help her feel better? Because you're then modeling, again, for pink that sometimes you can't fix things right away, but you can look for other avenues to kind of address those hurt feelings, those hurt bodies, those hurt emotions, okay? So you really want to make it an authentic experience. So again, this isn't something you can plan day to day, but if you already have in your mind how you're going to address those organic moments when they pop up, then you can address it in a more comprehensive kind of way where you're teaching that skill. Just like when a child is leafing through a book and they start to point out letters or words, and then you start to scaffold that learning by asking questions based on where you know they are academically in their development. You're going to do that same kind of thing by knowing the children and where they are in that social emotional development, and scaffold their learning one step higher, one step higher, one step higher. So that's why it's really important to connect to your kids. You know, we talk a lot, especially on things like Twitter with hashtags relationship matters and things like that, about that connectedness piece. And in a later video, I do want to give you more information on theorists like Maslow that really talk about that piece of connectedness, that sense of belonging. And knowing your kids and having that sense of connectedness with your kids will help you start to have those organic moments and utilize them for really targeted, scaffolded instruction for them, both on that academic domain, but also in that social emotional domain that we oftentimes goes, well, that's so hard, or the guidance counselor comes in and does that. But those organic moments are so much more powerful for their learning. Okay, so we will definitely do a little bit more role play a little bit later. Thank you guys for joining me. Remember to hashtag ditchtheclips. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, as well as here on my YouTube channel. So I look forward to your feedback and to hear your successes and what's really working for you, or if there's any specific language that you guys use when the children start to have conflicts in your classroom. So this is a community. We all learn and grow together, and I look forward to all the conversations this might spark between you and your colleagues. Thank you, and have a great day.